Good morning and welcome to Frontiers of Knowledge segment of Dr. Lamba's Awakening Code. Nowadays, with Russia putting its nuclear armed division on alert, people have been directed towards fission, but nuclear energy is much more dependent on nuclear fusion rather than energy fission. And the European scientists have made a major breakthrough in their quest for developing practical nuclear fusion. Now, what is nuclear fusion? Nuclear fusion is an energy that powers the stars. All the stars moving in the galaxy that you see, they need power. And that power they get from natural process of nuclear fusion. And if that can be made available to the people, the major polluting source, which is energy, in whichever way you use it, whether it's fossil energy or whatever, would not be there because it is the cleanest and the safest form of energy. So UK-based Jet Laboratory has established a record of its own, and then it has broken its own world record for the amount of energy it can extract by squeezing together two different forms of hydrogen. So they have taken two atoms, squeezed them, and produced energy. And if nuclear energy fusion can be successfully recreated on Earth, it holds out the potential, the capability of practically unlimited supplies of low carbon, low radiation energy. Of course, the experiment produced hardly 11 megawatts of power. It was done in just about 5 seconds. 59 megajoules of energy over 5 seconds. That's equivalent to 11 megawatts of power, and that was produced. Jet-based laboratories, which are based in UK, had done the same thing in 1997. But this time their production is double. At that time it was 5 megawatts of power, about 30 megajoules. Now it is 59 megajoules. Now the experts, the naysayers, the people who always think that it's not there, would say it's not a major energy output. Yes, it is not. But it's the first big step, because this energy which has been produced at 11 megawatts may be enough to boil 60 kettles worth of water. But the significance of that is that it validates, proves the choices can be made that for even bigger fusion reactors that is now being constructed in France. So if instead of 11 megawatts you have 1000 megawatt, 2000 megawatt, that's quite possible. Dr. Joe Millens, the head of the operations of the reactor lab, said that this has demonstrated very clearly that you can create a mini star inside your machine. So what people whom they say God created, the scientists can create it. Comes to the conclusion that the world is self-created and did not need an outside agency to create it. And the laboratory has proved beyond any shadow of doubt that a mini star inside the machine can be created. And not only that, you can hold the star for 5 seconds, get high performance. Now this is venturing into absolutely no realm. It's a new realm, it's a new avenue, it's a new field. But it's amazing. And honestly speaking, I'm excited. Now how does the nuclear fusion work? The scientists working in the nuclear plants are aware. But for the layman, it is first thing. You get hydrogen atoms, they are heated, and the heat is then subjected to the fusion reaction. Result, helium and neutron and energy are released, and neutron energy heats water. So heat energy, deuterium and tritium, heated produces neutron and helium, and then heat water, and that produces steam, and that creates the energy. Simple. So this process would be used to drive steam turbines to generate energy. Apparently it's very simple, but it's a very, very complex thing. Now, the ITER facility in South France is supposed to be consortium of the world governments, irrespective of the political differences. The scientists the world over, including EU member states, USA, China and Russia, they are working together in ITER facility in south of France. I am amazed that Indian scientists are not represented there, they are not participants. They should be. So it is expected to be the last word of capability in providing nuclear fusion. That would become ultimately the most reliable energy provider, possibly by 2050, yeah. Another 25 years, and you will have this energy. Operating the power plants of the future based on fusion would produce new greenhouse gases and very short amount of radioactive waste would be there. The biggest problem nowadays in the nuclear plants is a huge waste, which is put then in the sealed, carbon-sealed tankers, and then either put in the ocean, and they are absolutely unbreakable, or they are shot in the space. But these power plants would have no greenhouse gas or no pollution, and very, very tiny, almost insignificant amount of short-lived radioactive waste. And then, the experiments done by jet labs, which have completed work, they have said that if they had not been able to do it, then the ITER could not meet its goal. So this jet laboratory is basically complementing the work of ITER. Rather, it is fueling the system. This was a very high stakes, but then the brilliant people have lived up to the confidence reposed in them, and they have achieved this. The walls of the jet reactor were charged and they were changed to a material made from beryllium and tungsten. The purpose was that there should be no leakage in case of a mishap. So all the reactor walls were changed, and this new material was made from beryllium and tungsten, safe. Now, what is the basis on which fusion works? Nuclear fusion works on the principle that energy can be released by forcing together atomic nuclei rather than by splitting them. All the reactors all over the world, practically, are working on the principle of breaking down. Fission is breaking down. Fusion is bringing together. So, when you bring out the nuclear atoms, and then the energy is produced in a much more manner, and as I said, it's low energy, low radiation. In the core of the sun, the main source of energy in the world, There are huge gravitational pressures, and they allow this to happen because the temperature is about 10 million degrees Celsius. 10 million. And there's a much lower pressure than is possible on the earth. Huge pressure and high temperature. Basically, the temperature required to produce fusion of the same level as something produced in the sun, we would require a temperature of 100 million Celsius, and that's unimaginable. So no material can exist that can tolerate direct contact with such heat. So to achieve such fusion in a lab, scientists developed a solution. Human beings are innovative, ingenious. So what they did, they devised a solution in which superheated gas, a plasma, is held inside a magnetic field. And that magnetic field, if you look at it, it's like a donut. Now this JET stands for Joint European Torus. This laboratory in Oxfordshire. And for the last 40 years, they have been working on this system. And for the last 10 years, they have reconfigured to replicate the anticipated ITR setup. So ITR is coming now, but then all the work that has been done by JET would be utilized by ITR. Now this fusion announcement was a great news, but in the hullabaloo of the political fights, it was lost sight of. I agree that it won't help in our battle to reduce the effect of climate change, because what has happened has already happened. And there's an uncertainty about when the fusion power will be ready for commercialization. But the scientists estimate 2 decades, 20 years from now, you'll be having it. I give 10 years more, 30 years, and we should be having. So fusion would need to be scaled up, of course, which would mean a delay of a few years more, and that's why in the second half of the century, the people who are living at that time would not know even possibly what carbon or coal-based or diesel-based new plants are. They will have a different thing. But there's a problem. The need for the carbon-free energy is urgent. And the governments have pledged all electricity must be zero emission. At least that has been done by UK. They say by 2035 there will be zero emission. That means nuclear, renewable energy fusion. And fusion is not a solution at today. It's a solution to the problem in the second half of the century. Let's be very clear. If you think it's going to happen tomorrow, no. Another at least 30 years. Now the French labs preferred fuel to make the plasma is quite interesting. It's a combination of various factors, and what they have done is they have taken 2 isotopes of hydrogen called deuterium and tritanium. So this is what the JET lab did. They had a lining of 80 cubic meter vessel enclosing the magnetic field, and then it was coated with deuterium and tritanium. I told you the 2 vanadium. And for the record-breaking experiment in 1997, JET had used carbon, because carbon absorbs titanium, which is radioactive. But the new walls that have been constructed with beryllium and tungsten, they are 10 times less absorbent. So what the team did, they tuned the plasma to work effectively in the new department. And this is a stunning result, because it has proved beyond doubt that the great amount of energy output from fusion reaction in any device can be controlled. Now this is a landmark because they have demonstrated stability of plasma over 5 seconds. For you, it may not be long, but on a nuclear time scale, it's a long time. And it's easy to go from 5 seconds to 5 minutes, from 5 minutes to 5 hours, and so on. So, ITR's internally cooled superconductor magnets will now be used, and the fusion reactor in the labs unfortunately consume much more energy than they will produce at present in the next, say, 5 years. At Jet 2, 500 megawatt flywheels were used to run the experiment. Just to run the experiment, that means 1000 megawatt flywheels are being used. But there is a solid evidence that this deficit can be overcome in the future as the plasmas are scaled up. Now, one thing cannot be forgotten, that fusion takes a long time to begin with. But once it starts, there is no end. And that's why we have to ensure from one generation to the other, the people keep on taking. It's a long time, it's a complex, it's difficult, but as it has been shown, it's not impossible. So there is another consortium also in which 500 scientists are working. This is called Eurofusion. This consortium has experimented people from European Union, Switzerland, and Eastern Bloc, USSR, Russia, and China. But the Eurofusion and the IIT are definite that they are likely to do so, and soon after 2025, when Jet Labs will be closed to be fully amalgamated with IETR, this fusion, nuclear fusion, would be done at experimental stage in different cities in a low level. But by the end of the first half of the century, maybe it will become a regular energy supplier, and that holds a great promise. Think about it, and you would be excited as I am. Thank you.